Welcome to this, your daily briefing with none other than me. The press need to be held accountable, and by that we have to decide where we're going to click and where we're not going to click. So I'm just going to run through a few bits there, and then a little bit of a curveball in terms of what other people are sharing and discussing. I've got some thoughts on the legitimacy of Harry Kane being allowed to leave Tottenham, or whether he won't be allowed, and all that jazz, because there's a little bit of law there we can bring in, which might be useful. But the press first, and The Athletic have been a bother to me, because when they first started, I quite enjoyed them, and I didn't mind paying the full sub, which was £9 at the time. However, they appear to have lost all the little italicised The Athletic understands, which normally revealed information that I would say was pretty on point, because it's very rare when you're talking about inside information or gossip or whatever that you get, oh, so-and-so signing on Thursday. It doesn't happen like that. And I think I said to you before, most of the information you get is actually more use to you than it is the reader, because it isn't worth publishing per se, but it helps frame everything else that's going on. I hope that makes sense. But The Athletic has gone from being a useful source of insight and wisdom to just being a parade. Now, I'm only talking about the Tottenham Hotspur feed here, okay? And I leave David Ornstein out to a large degree. But an endless parade of people throwing thousands of words at us for articles which could have been succinctly covered in maybe 200 or 300 words. Because we don't need the history of the light bulb, or whatever it may be, the timeline of the potato peeler, on every single bloody piece that we read. And I think few of us these days, unless we're going to actually settle down with a real book, have the time to read this stuff. And my understanding is that The Athletic is 140 million in the hole, in the red, and is trying to bump the numbers by only charging £1 in order to get a deal across the line with the New York Post or the New York Times. I think it's the New York Times. So that The Athletic is a box that needs a shake, and nothing sums this up as well as this weekend's piece from Sebastian Stafford Bloor. And he tells us that the most powerful move that Daniel Levy could make, are you ready, is to make Ryan Mason the next permanent manager at the football club. And then goes on to make a case that would fall apart if a child blew at it. Under Mason, we've predictably won some games, lost some other games, including another cup final, and all we got out of him was an overdose of vanilla essence and regurgitated lines written by Daniel Levy on a cue card. Absolutely hopeless. Nothing against him personally. He's probably a great kid, just not a football manager. And I'm unconvinced, entirely unconvinced, that Daniel Levy's plan to inflict Mason and Ledley King on the next incoming coach has any use to anybody. What is useful, and I would direct you to The Sun, is Martin Lipton's piece. And opposed to this insane business of chasing around, so I noticed sadly that today we're linked with the old Wolves boss. Again, nice guy. What's he going to do with his squad? What's the magic formula he's got in his pocket? What fairy dust is going to bring Harry Winks back to life? Or sort Eric Dyer's head out, or make Dele Alli feel that he has to really pull his weight. But it's like that scene from the Life of Brian, where it's like, oh, he's the Messiah. No, he's the Messiah. I should know. I followed a few. And there's no integrity to any of that. it really is sad. And Lipton is a good example to me of a proper journalist. You know, he's not just some idiot churning out content for clicks. And his piece in the Sun, here's a quote: "Tottenham manager shambles is a horrible, smelly and unpleasant mess. What must Harry Kane be thinking?" And I think that is a far better way to go. I think that, and analysing what, and then there's all this talk about Kane, oh, he can't leave, he signed a contract, he's in a very weak position. And I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And we'll discuss that in 2 minutes. A quick filler in this sandwich for you. There's an account that caught my attention online, and regular readers and viewers will be aware that I'm not a big fan of the Supporters Trust. I actually question their validity as an organisation. I don't understand what they do, and the bureaucracy I find suffocating. So there's an account called at the shelf. Put the right teeth in, at the shelf side N17. I'll put the link on the description thing. And I think, but I don't know, it's nothing to do with me, and it's in fact somebody I don't really know at all. I've just, had a quick message and, hello mate, this looks good. Set up what might afford fans a meaningful way of interacting with the club. Now, it doesn't matter, because I know the first thing some of you are going to say is, yeah, but if they're not recognised, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You can have a relationship with organisations without having to do tea and biscuits with them. Absolutely you can. All you need to do is to have a voice, to have a clarity to your purpose, and your tone has to be on point with the rest of the people you're trying to engage with and get behind. And right-thinking people will have to listen to you. The club needs to be held to account. I don't believe the way the trust are doing it is working, and it would be interesting to me if this thing has legs. I just don't know at this stage. But I'm not suggesting you give this person any money. I don't think any of these things need funding. I think they can just be done by what people say and express. But so that's something to consider. So, Harry Kane. I've got to preface any remarks on Harry Kane with this one line, which is, slavery has been abolished. Okay? So, thankfully, that no longer exists. So, if we can move on from that point, then that will steer us in the right direction. This is an example from the Standard. I think this is from this summer, of what I would say is not bad journalism as such, but it's just it's shallow. So, and it reads thus: Kane signed a 6-year contract in 2018, committing him to the club until 2024. This means he's contracting to Tottenham for another 3 seasons, weakening his position. We'll come back to that. This is the thing that's horrible, though. It is understood that he has a gentleman's agreement with Chairman Levy that he can leave this summer, so that dates the article, following interest from Manchester City, which was rebuffed by Spurs. Let's get one thing straight. Slavery's been abolished and gentlemen's agreements don't exist. If they do exist in the 21st century opposed to the 17th century, then they certainly don't exist in a legally enforceable contract. And then that leads us on to another item, which is footballers' contracts are not like normal contracts. So, like if you enter into a business arrangement with somebody, you can't just turn around and say, well, my head's been turned, okay? Because the law is the law is the law. However, on the subject of the law, there is a potential loophole of sorts, and that's called the Webster ruling. And I won't go into the whole detail of it, but it was a Heart of Midlothian guy who wanted to go to Wigan, and the club didn't want to sell him. And if players, now let's just get the line here, but it's to do with players being under the age of 28, and they can effectively buy out the last 3 years of their contract, and if they're over 28 they can buy out the last 2. Now you have to bear in mind that as an elite footballer, Harry Kane is financially very wealthy. He's a high net worth individual in his own right. And equally, that anybody who's going to buy him is in a supersized version of that position. So what happened in this landmark ruling was that a FIFA ruling awarded Hearts a mere 625,000 when the club was seeking 4.6 million. And this was challenged. The challenge was overruled, and a guy from FIFA Pro, Tony Higgins, said at the time, "My view has always been this the most significant case since Bosman. The the Webster case allows players after a set period of time, if they so wish, to decide who their future employer will be. We now have a degree of certainty as to what the value in question will be, and clubs have to reevaluate their strategies in dealing with players on long-term contracts." And without going down the whole rabbit hole of player contracts, what we do have is a bit of history here, because this isn't the first time that Daniel Levy has been staring at this. And I'll give you Exhibit A and Exhibit B, Berbatov and Modric. So Levy can contest this. He can drag his heels and he can scream and he can shout, and I expect him to do both of those things. But I would find it absolutely amazing that, given the shall we say, the activity surrounding the club in the last 18 months, 19 months, since Pochettino was ejected from the building, I would be amazed if he wants to get himself involved in more bad publicity. Since Poch went, nothing has gone right. And to get involved in a legal squabble, which isn't going to go anywhere, because nobody can make a footballer do something he doesn't want to do. He's not a racehorse who will probably happily run around with anybody on its back. He's not a greyhound who'll probably quite happily chase any electric bunny. He's a human being, and it just can't happen. So there's a lot of sort of barrack room lawyers online who say, "Oh no, he's in a very weak position. There's 3 years left on the time." Doesn't matter. It just affects the money. It just affects the cost of the insurance. And that's all years on a contract are, their insurance. Nothing more. So, rattle through a fair bit there. Check what you're reading. Is the press any good, or is it doing you bad? And engage your brain when you're discussing transfers with people. We're talking about human beings here. And even as a die-hard Tottenham fan, I wish Harry well and I wish him success. And unfortunately, he's not going to get that under ENIC. More soon. Take care. Keep it Tottenham.